Shalom, children of God. This is part 2 of church hurt or church hate. So, I want to ask all of you, does anyone actually hurt well? Clearly, we don't. And I was not hurting well in 2014. My marriage was clearly on the rocks. The cracks were cracking, and we had finally gotten to a place where we realized that we needed to end it. There was no longer intimacy, there was no longer love, there was disrespect. I was very, very starved for fellowship. I was starved for love. I wanted to be loved. I am human. And so I embarked on a relationship in 2015 with someone who's still in my life, who's very much a part of my life, and someone who was clearly married himself. And that said, I was now at a church that I was in for a considerable amount of time, and I was part of the volunteer group. And so when I started to see this person, I realized that I should step down, and so I started to make excuses for not going because I didn't know how to tell my team leader that I was in an adulterous relationship. My family was fully aware of this relationship because I had gone to my ex about it. I had gone to my children about it. Please don't get me wrong, that didn't make it right. But they were fully aware of what was going on. And so by the end of, or towards August, I think 2017, if I recall, I desperately wanted a meeting with my pastor. I knew that I needed help because I was very broken. I was all over the place. I was not a nice person. And so I waited a month before I finally got that meeting, and that was because I insisted. My pastor didn't want to meet with me, and that was very painful to me. So I get to this meeting, and the marriage counselor was also in this meeting, and it's so sad that he was so quiet and did not speak a word thereafter with regards to what happened in that office. My pastor sat across from me, asked me a lot of questions, which I truthfully answered. He said he's got no time for a sinner like me. He told me I'm in an adulterous relationship, and he finds it very disconcerting. And I said to him, that's what I need you for. You guys are supposed to be the hospital, and that's the reason I'm here. He asked me a whole lot more, questions which I answered. He didn't particularly like some of my answers because, how do I tell you that I'm now no longer coming to church because I'm in a bad financial place and you're not understanding? It was things like that, and it was a very sad time for me. And he went on to then tell me that I'm a sinner. And then I looked at him and I said, and so are you. And that got me the boot. He walked me to the door of his office. Again, I'm going to say the marriage counselor was very quiet. He walked me to the door of the office. He opened it. He told me to get out of his church. In those very words, get out of my church. He walked me to the front door and said, get out of my church and do not come back here. All that because I told him he's a sinner. And in truth, he is a sinner. That said, it was completely a downward spiral from there. I did what any immature individual that is clearly very hurt did. I plastered this on Facebook for leadership to get wind of it because we were all friends on social media at that time. And I was unfriended by the main campus pastors. I was unfriended by my so-called friends. I was told I'm a terrible human being and that their pastor will never do such a thing like that. I was called by one of the deacons from the main campus in Johannesburg. He had asked me to remove the post. I had asked him if he read the post, and he said he read it halfway. So I said, when you read it fully, let me know and you can then tell me what to do and we'll talk about it. I didn't remove my post. I think my post is still there. That said, it was not an easy journey going forward. I was really, really upset about a lot of things that happened. Clearly, I wasn't part of the church anymore. My daughter was still going, and there was a lot that happened there after that. Is for another, video. But there's one thing that I didn't stop doing, even though it was very difficult for me to sit under leadership in any other church. I did try. I went to home groups. I did all of the above. But I knew there was something missing in my life, and that was obedience. I wasn't obedient to my God. I was still fornicating. I was still in this adulterous relationship. I was angry all the time. I was hurt. I was rejected by this family. I was rejected by my friends. I was in a place of just full on rejection, and I was very, very broken. And the people that were meant to be my friends all left. Yet they were clearly sinners as well. Because remember, if a church is empty, means there are no sinners. That's how one of the ways in which I look at church. The church is full of sinners. Why were they not chased out? Why was I chased out? And clearly, God had eventually revealed to me that there was an email sent to my church asking my pastor to please kick me out of the church. And from what I gather, and has been confirmed, that my pastor, my then pastor, actually said he cannot kick me out of the church. But in retrospect, that's exactly what he did. He kicked me out of the church. He literally booted me out of the church. And for me, that was hate. That was hate that was coming from the individual that, sent forth all his understanding of who I was, and he had no right to do that. To my pastor, who clearly was quite weak, instead of calling me in to ask me what was going on, maybe even give me an understanding of that email, and we could talk about it. But no, I was given the boot. I was under the impression that my ex-husband had something to do with that, an assumption that drew me to actually hate him, that drew me to a place where I thought, how could you be so cruel when you know that that was my place of fellowship? And I was kicked out of everything that had God written on it. Friends, family, potential family, all of the above. I was just kicked out, hated, rejected, as I said. But there was one thing that I didn't stop doing. I didn't stop praying, because I knew I was doing something that was not making my God happy. And so I wasn't listening. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I wasn't listening. I wasn't putting into perspective the words of God and the obedience that He asks us to follow. I was not following the commandments, okay? Until 2022, where something very big happened to me, and it was so beautiful. And it was like you would snap a green bean. That's what happened to me. God came through in a way that only now I understand. I didn't understand it then, but it happened so fast. It was amazing. Now that I look at it, it has been nothing but amazing. So to put you into the picture, I gave up this relationship, not in all its entirety, but I was no longer romantically involved. I didn't want to be romantically involved. We are still friends, but I gave it up because I knew I was doing something wrong, and God had spoken. And He had taken me down a path to where I am today, where I walk in obedience. I don't fornicate. I'm not in any relationship. I don't want to be in one. I'm in only one relationship, and that's with my Father God. I love the space that I'm in. Yes, I still get rejected. Yes, I'm hurt. Yes, I'm gossiped about. I was gossiped about not so long ago. God shows me a lot. He's always shown me a lot. I have the gift of a seer. I couldn't hone in on my gifts clearly because I was in the wrong, but God is bringing that back to me, and I love the space I'm in. That doesn't mean I don't get attacked. I get attacked on a daily basis. It's not an easy journey. I've forgiven. I have not forgotten. I have forgiven, and I will continue to be the best person that I can continue to be. And I want those of you who have judged me to remember one thing. You sin once and you've sinned them all. So don't judge me on adultery, because God has forgotten my sin. He loves me. I've repented, and He holds me close to His heart because I walk in obedience. And I pray that you guys can as well. Shalom, shalom.